G'day chaps, welcome back. We are talking about virtual reality in Star Citizen today. This is the next in the series, the OpinioNated series that myself and my friend Mark are doing. It was Mark's idea, and a very good idea it was too. We're talking about Star Citizen, and in particular virtual reality, what it means for the game, how we think virtual reality might work in the game, and what it might bring to the game. So, yeah, some fairly straightforward topics. We veer off a little bit into, I guess, what we hope it would be and how we imagine virtual reality itself will develop, which is quite important because I think we all know that the tech is in the very early stages of development. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. It's about 20 minutes long. And, yeah. Let me know what you think. Let us know, sorry, as always. And thanks for watching.
I was thinking, what's the advantage of VR over having over having your regular battle station, like, your three screens? How would it work? And is Vive with the two hand things and Oculus Touch, which I guess is basically the same thing as what Vive already has. Is that possible in that world, to use in that world? And if so, how? Because that thing, the Vive at least, requires like a room space cube, in order to move around in, and that just doesn't seem practical for what the game is. So I would guess that the touch controls or the actual hand controls would not factor in. That's not something that's really practical for this kind of a world.
And I'm going to add to that and say that that's also the reason I'm not interested in the Vive, because of those hand controllers. Because I'm never gonna set a chunk of my house aside to play a fucking video game. I'm just not.
Yeah.
And I like to sit down. I like to be comfortable. If you're gonna play a game for 3, 4, 5, 6, if you're really lucky, 8 hours, then you don't want to be standing up and moving around the whole time. Surely. I don't know. It seems kind of gimmicky to me.
No, it'd be exhausting.
It seems kind of gimmicky to me right now. But I mean, or maybe this is just one of those parts of tech where you have different branches. It branches off. So you get the kind of the physical side of VR, and then you get the comfortable, you're in the, where I am now. You're at your desk and you've got some kind of controller in your hand.
To be honest, I saw, this is getting off the subject a little bit, but one of the things that I saw happening with that was the reintroduction of some kind of an outside service, something that's outside the home, because of exactly what you just said. The vast majority of people are not going to be able to set aside a space in order to have that kind of an experience. But if you can go to some kind of a dedicated space, like an arcade, or like those old the old BattleTech places.
Do you know what?
Where they used to have the full-on mech warrior simulators. If you had that kind of a thing and you had experiences created for that, it'd be kind of, it might be expensive to go, but that could be worthwhile.
It actually exists in Melbourne. Someone's done it. So they've taken...
really?
They've taken the Oculus, and so you go along to this place. It's basically like a warehouse, and you get a super powerful laptop strapped to your back. And you get these, really, and then you get these guns, and you're placed in this custom-made zombie simulation. So you have to run through this world and take out these zombies that are coming at you, and sort of go in and rescue some people. And this is a thing. It's in Melbourne, and I've called them up. I said, were you interested? Could I come along and have a look and sort of review it for the channel? And they were like, no, we're too busy. Sorry, we're booked out every weekend. So.
Yeah,
it's popular as fuck.
To me, that's worthwhile. I'd go out for that experience. Yeah. People go out for paintball all the time. Why wouldn't they go out for that?
Yeah, and it's early generation tech, so it's still bulky and clunky, and the software is not going to be that great, but the reviews are amazing. Like, people love it. People are loving it, and I want to go. I was trying to get my the marketing department at work to go, and they were all like, "Oh, VR is just a fucking nerdy thing." I was like, mate, you have no idea how much fun this would be. Yeah.
It's like you're only hating on it because it's a computer game and you can't get beyond that.
It is. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
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 But it's like this is more than a computer game. This is an experience. They're creating an experience
And they
there.
just don't get it. They've never tried it, so they don't know how good it can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
My line manager, he only got interested when he found out there was VR porn. Otherwise, he was just like, nah, it's just fucking video games. I'm not interested.
You mean I can watch my POVs in full 3D like I was actually there?
Yep. Yeah. We're getting pretty much off topic though. So yeah, Star Citizen and VR. You were saying, what does it add to the game? Well, immersion. Is there anything beyond immersion? I mean, or like, what were you thinking on that part?
That's the thing is that that's basically as far as I got, because beyond the immersion aspect of it, I can't really see it going anywhere else, because it's still going to be need to be played with a controller and flight stick.
But
it's like I could see switching back and forth between those two. It's like if you want to go really deep into it, you use a controller for the or a mouse and keyboard for your 3D. Well, you could use a mouse and keyboard for both, but you use your mouse that for your first person part of it, and then you could use a flight stick for your for your space simulation part of it, for your space flight simulation.
The other thing we need to bear in mind,
that with VR I think would be immersion enough.
The other thing we need to bear in mind is that VR tech is going to advance so very quickly. So I saw a little clip, I think it was from the Tokyo show or something, and someone has developed a sensor that goes on the front of goggles that means it actually picks up your real life hand movements. So it takes your hands and then it just reproduces them in the game.
Yeah.
So
that could be good.
So you don't need a controller. You don't need anything. You've got this headset, you've got your earphones, and that's it. And then you can just move your hands, and you could simulate holding a gun, or you could simulate your flight stick, and you wouldn't even need a flight stick necessarily. Maybe you want one because you want that sort of tactic feedback. And the same with the gun. Maybe you can hold something that replicates the weight and the size of a gun. But this thing is actually going to pick up your hand movements, so you don't need these controllers anymore. You start to move in. You get into free movement then, which
basically you have props. You could have props that you could use.
Basically, yeah. But you're into free movement.
That could be cool.
That'd be really cool. You could sit down, and if you want to, I don't know how you do the forward motion. The leg side of it, but having that free hand movement, I can see being very popular. I can see that working.
Pedals. You just have pedals for whatever the not for leg movement, but you could have pedals for whatever operations you want to do with your feet. Although I still think for running you would still want a controller. But hand movement sounds really good for like for gunplay and also for cockpit simulation. So if you're in the cockpit and you can actually like flip switches and touch buttons and stuff like that, that would be amazing. That sounds a little far off.
The thing you're going to miss though is that tactic feedback. You're not going to be able to actually touch anything. You're not going to feel any. Do you know what I mean? You'd have to buy, like you said, props.
I would.
And that could get expensive really, really quick.
It could, depending on how the props work. The way that I could see that working really easily is you just have gloves that have haptic feedback.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and that would happen quickly. That's something that technology already exists. So all they would have to do is just take that hand movement, with whatever objects in the world, and then have some kind of a haptic feedback for that done.
Actually, now you mention it, there's no point having controllers, really. If you sort of stretch off into the future, why not just have gloves for everything? Because then you can have that feedback on, if you've got it all over these gloves, these sensors, and it can accurately track precisely your hand movements, you don't need anything else, sure. Because you could simulate any feel.
Because the gloves could because you could make a pair of gloves that aren't prohibitively expensive. They'd be expensive. They wouldn't be prohibitively expensive. They could have resistance and feedback easily. And if you have resistance, then you're, for all intents and purposes, if your mind and your eyes and your senses are in the game, and that's corresponding to the resistance that's happening in your hands, then that's going to feel real. It's like there's racing games already do it really well. So if you are, for example, like Gran Turismo with a good racing wheel, it feels like you're really driving that car. the thing shakes like it's supposed to. It pulls in the direction that it's supposed to. It's like it does everything that a real car does, and it's actually been proven. People who get really good at driving like that in Gran Turismo, they can drive in real
Because
life.
they're simulations.
If you put them in a real car, they can really drive.
Because they're real simulations.
Because it's a full-on simulation. Yeah.
And it'll be the same with flight simulations. I mean, when they're training pilots, it's basically just a video game. It's just a really fucking expensive simulator for a video game. It's
because they have to build this whole machine around them, because the thing like the gloves and stuff and VR didn't exist. So they had to build this bubble with all these that move, where the entire thing moves, because the granular technology needed to do this kind of thing we're talking about with gloves and resistance and haptic feedback didn't exist when they needed to build these flight simulators.
Absolutely.
But that stuff all exists. Yeah, that stuff all exists now. It just is up to somebody who's smart and has the wherewithal to put it together. But with the guy already simulating the hand movements, somebody's going to make that leap immediately. Somebody's going to make that right away, and they're going to start working on that.
Do you think games like Star Citizen or other games are going to struggle to keep up with the pace of advancement in VR tech? Because VR tech is so obviously the hot tech, and it's where so much money is going to be thrown. So it's going to, and you've got major corporations now competing with each other. So you're going to get the iPhone Samsung thing where, each are pushing the other constantly. And then software is going to have to keep up. I mean, it feels like it's going to be quite messy for a few years before any kind of platforms are developed or any kind of regularity. Do you think that's going to be a problem? It's going to have to be a problem, surely. Must be.
It's going to be a problem in the short term. You're already seeing it happen. With the advent of 4K and with PlayStation VR, you're already seeing it, because the regular PlayStation 4 is probably not going to be able to fully handle the VR. It certainly can't handle 4K, and so they're having to release this. They're having to release early a new iteration of this console, which consoles are that's a different thing. They're becoming obsolete in general, but they're having to release this other thing simply because the tech and the software are outpacing this thing that they tried to future-proof. So they're having to slap something together now in order to keep up with the with where the industry is going.
Incidentally, I saw an article maybe week before last that we could be coming close to the end of the console era.
Consoles are coming to an end.
Because hardware is, everything's just going to have to move to the cloud at some point. Once internet speeds get fast enough. Yeah. And, like is happening in corporations now, you go in, you're at your workstation, but the actual computing is not necessarily done at your desk. It will be done off in some data center somewhere. Because that's the only way to make it really efficient. Yeah, and you're just logging in.
Yeah.
And there was some gaming service that tried to do that. Like they had gaming in the cloud, and
there was it was
I forget the name.
It was what became PlayStation Now. Before that, it was because PlayStation bought them, Sony bought them, and it became PlayStation Now. But before that, what the hell was it called? Damn, I know what you're talking about, but but Sony bought them, and it's now PlayStation Now.
Okay.
But yeah, I know what you're talking about. And that's they're using that to stream like a PlayStation 3 game, so you can play PlayStation 3 games on your PS4.
Well, they're streaming
it's not
them.
Actually on your PS4. Yeah, you're streaming the PS3 game.
Oh, how? Wow.
So
it's already happened.
Yeah, it's already happening.
Just not in Australia.
But it's what you said.
Because the internet's so shit.
Speeds aren't quite fast enough. Yeah. Yeah, but essentially, before that can truly happen, there's going to have to be an infrastructure upgrade in communities, in cities.
But that's happening, and that's inevitable.
Once the infrastructure, that's inevitable. Yeah, that's already happening in a lot of places. So one of the things is like Kansas City. Kansas City, middle of bumfuck nowhere. But they have one of the most advanced internet infrastructures in the country. Okay. Yeah.
Why?
So it's like because I believe Google invested in them. So I think Google basically built their. I might be wrong on this, but I'm almost positive Google basically built their infrastructure. So their infrastructure is way beyond what most of the country has.
Why would Google do that though? This is kind of
kind of an experiment because they Yeah, because they're sitting on giant mountains of cash and they can do
Just
stuff
do
with
what they
that.
want, basically. Let's see what happens to
Yeah,
this
basically. It's like, hey,
massive
let's
group
do a
of
social
humanity.
experiment. Let's go out to where's stuff cheap? Kansas. All right, let's go to Kansas and build something. See what happens.
Let's see if people change, become smarter, or buy more,
Yeah, let's see if
buy
things
more
change
Google
in
shit or
Kansas.
something. God, what a crazy corporation.
Yeah.
Anything else on VR that you can think of? I can't really think of much.
Not too much, you know. I mean, looking at the stuff that they have right now, you know, the kind of controls, I would agree with you. It seems like it's like you're playing, you know, Wii or Kinect in VR, you know. But ultimately, that's kind of
Yeah.
gimmicky. You know, there's not going to be a whole lot that can be done with that. It does need to go beyond that to the point where, like what you were talking about, if you can use your hands, you know, in the actual game, that's cool because you know you can sit there and move around and stuff like that, and then just put your hand out and grab something, you know. But the movement is still done with like an analog stick or whatever.
But there are still, because then there are no restrictions on the developers either. They don't need to develop around controllers. They can do whatever the fuck they want. And then you get into some truly cool games. You can get into painting, sculpting, any kind of stuff. And then it kind of goes beyond video games as well.
They're already doing.
Right.
They're already doing a little bit of that with the basic motion controls they have right now with Vive and stuff like that, because they have like there's this one that's like it's a virtual reality music studio, and you can pick all these different instruments, drum machines, keyboards, voice modulators or sound modulators, all kinds of stuff, and all of this stuff connects together just like it would in real life. So if you really understand like how a music studio works, you can create a music studio and use that music studio to create real music within virtual reality.
That's cool.
And you can put all of this stuff in a three-dimensional space, and it works well. I watched a video of this thing, and it was really impressive. You know, the guy was talking about he had some experience in music studios, and he's just like, dude, this stuff works. You know, this is really cool. You know, I can just put this beatbox, you know, up over my head over here, and then put this thing down over here, you know, and I can just put it wherever I feel like it needs to go.
And then you get into some real interesting
and then connect it together however I need.
Tools.
Yeah, because it's gone beyond a play. You know, that thing isn't about playing; it's about creation. You know, so you can sit there and create real music using this software as a tool.
And then the other thing is content
simulating.
The other thing is content consumption, because I know for a fact that Facebook bought Oculus with plans for media in general, so watching movies and God knows what else. So they are thinking way beyond video games.
Well, look at what was that movie called? Hardcore Henry.
Don't know it.
Something like that. I think it was called Hardcore Henry. It's a movie that was completely shot in first person.
Okay. Oh, so you could experience that movie.
In my mind,
of course.
Yeah, in my mind, that movie was created with the purpose. I mean, it came out in theaters, and you know, it actually got decent reviews. You know, because it's a cool concept.
Oh, fuck yeah, movies.
But I think that movie got created purely because of VR. You know, because it's like you put on this thing, and now you're Hardcore Henry or whoever this guy is. You know, you're having this first-person experience of this whole thing going on. That'd be cool, because that'd be an experience.
And what you could even do with that is you could have a single movie that you could watch from the perspectives of different characters. You could go back and watch it from someone else's perspective. That would be mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah.
How insane would that be?
Yeah, it would. You essentially have you have this movie going on, and you can jump around from character to character and get different perspectives. Oh man, that'd be awesome.
And then you're into a whole different playing field.
That might not even be that hard to do in the future, because you could essentially put a camera on every actor that's invisible. You know, you can't see it, but it gives you their perspective. That would change the way the movies are done.
Yeah, you become part of the actual. Well, it's experience, isn't it? The whole idea is experience.
It goes from a third-person consumption kind of a perspective. Well, it's going to be consumption either way.
But it goes from the outside observer.
You are now the director, to passive participant.
And then
not active participant. That's video games. But you're passive. You're participating. Whereas in movies now, you're not participating.
And then back to porn.
That could be good. Yeah.
And then back to porn.
Just blew my mind.
Oh my god, mind blown.
Yeah, no, exactly. Mind blown. And then I just need a VR. What is it? What is that tube? You know, one of those tubes you can stick on your junk.
This is probably the best.
Simulate the whole experience. It's like I'm really there.
I think it's time to stop the video. I think it's time to stop the video before we descend
Yeah, probably before we go off into
the
all
gutter. Because it gets so much worse.
that. Yeah.
But this is not for public consumption.
Yeah. It only goes down from there. It only goes down from
I'm
there.
going to stop it here.